Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The CINIKRADIO podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cinik Radio podcast. Here your host, Cinik.
Hey, the facts are Spider-Man belongs in the MCU. Sony was delusional thinking they didn't need Marvel, and now he's back. And we, the fans, are 100% proudly responsible for that.
Igrihe.
As long as DC wants to make dark and gritty movies, they're going to lag behind Marvel in every category.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
IG, did we just forget Kim?
You guys completely suck.
This is the greatest show of all time.
This is episode 129 of the Cinik Radio podcast, and I'm your Twi'lek bathhouse attendant, Cinik. And joining me, as always, my co-hosts, who just woke up from their carbon-freeze nap, Igrihe, Ryan, and Kim. And on this week's show, the Star Wars content continues to rule as we review episode 3 of The Mandalorian, entitled The Sin. Can this show keep its audience captured? Let's find out. The episode opens aboard the Razor Crest as Djarin appears to be flying his bounty back to the Imps. Ryan, the title of the episode is The Sin. You're a practical dude, but you're kind of a big softie like I am. Did the title lead you to believe that he was just going to hand this kid over?
It's Star Wars, and it's very clearly the story was going to be headed in the direction of him taking the baby or the child with him. I was concerned maybe that he would give the child up, and then either the rest of the series would be him chasing after, which I don't think my heart could take, or it would be within this episode that he would give the child back and come back. But I figured the sin would be kind of breaking. I mean, there are two kind of sins. One sin could be the moral sin, which is giving this child up knowing that he'd likely be tortured and killed, or the sin of breaking kind of the code. So I think there were two potential sins, and I was interested to see which one would be what the episode title was really about, or maybe it's about both.
How about you, Kim? Did you believe that he was going to give the kid back?
I was kind of torn on this one. Like, I had an idea for how I thought the episode was going to go, but I knew that there would be some redemption to it, and I just didn't know if it was going to happen yet or not. But I have a tie-in to that when we get to something later.
Ooh, spoiler. IG, the reward was vast, and you're a feared hunter of men for hire, with a reputation which is basically everything. Is keeping your secret that you needed the help of a child to kill a mudhorn enough for you to turn an infant over?
I don't know about that. I think, when you're a Mandalorian and Beskar is life, when they give you one thing and you get a shoulder and then they twist that thing open and all that Beskar is there, that's probably enough. And he said there was a lot more. So, yeah, I think we all have moments of greed. And we'd all do something somewhat dirty, and most of us would do it for a bag of Reese cups. So doing it for something that can change your whole life as far as being a Mandalorian, I guess I can understand doing that. Now, what I see in this episode is a switch from one sin to the next, right? So we have a sin of him giving up that child, that's heart-wrenching. But then the sin of working for the Empire that decimated the Mandalorians previously. So, I mean, there's sins abound in the episode. So I think the title was really kind of an apropos thing. It was really neat to see the different places they could go with a title that way.
I think you almost have to give the kid up. I personally would. I mean, I would give IG up for a bag of Reese cups, let alone, a whole case of them. I may go back for you, but only after I eat them all, because I won't want to share them once I rescue you. But I have a feeling that if I was in Djarin's place, I think I would give the kid up, because not only is that Beskar going to help him give a shiny new suit, but it's also going to help up-and-coming Mandalorians, and you've got to kind of watch out for your own people. So playing devil's advocate, I think I probably would give the kid up, and that's life. You don't want to get involved in that whole Imperial rebel back and forth, because it's done nothing but hurt the Mandalorians throughout their history. Kim, because baby on board stickers just don't inspire fear unless they're parked outside of a movie theater or an airport, make the case for the adorable baby. Why shouldn't Yoda go back to the hands of the Imperials?
Because they're awful people and he's freaking adorable and everybody loves him. Is that the skimming the surface answer that you would like?
Have you finished your picture of him yet?
No, I'm actually in the process of him right now.
All right, Kim, it's been a week. How adorable could it be if you haven't finished the picture yet?
I actually did a survey on Facebook and asked people if they wanted to see like a general sketch of it or if they wanted to see like a watercolor. So I let people decide.
You know, the thing is, you say the right thing, right? Movie theaters and airplanes, right? Babies are feared there. And that's because babies tend to do things that are awful, like scream and stink and everything else that you don't want in an enclosed environment that you can't escape from. This baby, however, first of all, is 50, so maybe it knows how to use a toilet. And secondly, hasn't made more than a couple of little whimpers the whole 3 episodes we've seen it. So it's a really well-trained baby. So as far as babies go, it's about as cute as it gets. And it's about as good as it gets because it doesn't make noise. It's damn near a mute. If they'd feed it some pancakes, it'd be a full, complete package.
I don't know. I think that movie theater tickets for any child under 12 and airplane tickets should be $5,000. No matter what they're going to see, no matter where they're flying to, $5,000 a flat fee just for having to listen to it the whole way, or them to kick their seats, or just asking any questions. I had to get up and move in a Batman movie because there was a kid that just wouldn't stop talking. I just turned around and I just kind of did one of the shrugged at his parents. I'm like, really? And I got up and I moved away. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of kids. Ryan, unlike us, stormtroopers aren't known for their kind and gentle nature or their ability to hook up a toilet main. All they know is killing in white uniforms. Could their treatment of the child almost immediately upon entering the building shape the events to come?
Yeah, I think obviously from the very beginning of the episode, it was like tugging on our heartstrings, but also tugging on Mando's heartstrings. And I think that everything from the beginning on was really leading to him having to make that eventual choice of, do I stay or do I go? Do I head out or do I try to rescue the child? And yeah, I think the stormtroopers kind of, just complete lack of any, I guess, empathy for the child or any lack of care added to it. Definitely made me think more and more, okay, they're leaning hard in that direction. And, obviously that would turn out to be the case.
Kim, if you had a kid or a pet or elderly parent, and the first thing you do when you walk them through the door or wherever you're leaving them to be cared for is they kind of yank at it and, basically say, get over here in Scorpion voice. In good conscience, you can't leave the kid there, right?
Common sense would tell you that. And I think the Mandalorian kind of picked up on that. I think his senses were going off, that there was like that moment where he picks up the bars and he's looking at them, and it's almost like has that conscious decision that's kind of weighing on him, and he's a little bit torn. He knows he has a job to do. He's been commissioned to do this job. This is what he has to complete. But on the same hand, he knows that it's also the wrong move to make, and ultimately ends up coming back at a later point in the show.
IG, the client, and his creepy doctor sidekick were a little happier to see Mando's return with their prize. He's rewarded handsomely, but questions the client about the amount of people he sent after the package. As a bounty hunter, and we all know that you are, would you be pissed too, not only to have to find your mark, deal with all the consequences of capturing it, but then also compete against the whole guild to get your reward?
Well, on that guild and any other guild and everything else, it's like, you trying to steal my loot, guys? What are we doing here? If my reputation is so high that you're making such a big deal about hiring me, why are you even bringing the rest of these clowns in here? I mean, at least give me a day or two to try and get this figured out before you send in literally everyone else. And that's the problem. I mean, like, when we see all the fobs reactivate later, it's crazy how many were handed out. And I understand that this is an extremely valuable asset. I understand this is something that, like, in the grand scheme of things, the amount of Beskar he gave him was peanuts. Like, he should have been paid a lot more for what they were doing. But, if you're just the top guy, if you're Tom Brady, are you really going to send in Colin Kaepernick to play for you? Probably not. You're not going to say, well, we got Tom Brady over here, let's put in this other guy.
But that's the thing, right, Ryan? I mean, they bring him in and then they kiss his ass when he shows back up because he got the win. He took the W. But at the same time, they really put his safety in jeopardy by sending all these bounty hunters because, maybe somebody steps outside the guild and takes a pot shot at him and tries to regain the child, which I believe we saw with the Transdoshans. They attacked and they tried to just off the kid outright. As a bounty hunter, what would your reaction be to the client when you found out that he basically sent half the scum and villainy after the kid?
I don't know. I think it depends on what are the rules. Like, is it against the rules to send that many bounty hunters after the same, on the same job? So I think that would be my question, because if it's not violating the rules, like clearly this is an important job, and clearly the amount of Beskar that he got from it was enough for him to give up the child and enough for him to go to do everything that he needed to do, to capture him. Yeah, it would be upsetting, but at the same time, if it's, as long as it's not violating any of the rules, I mean, it's kind of par for the course. I think I think maybe it's a bit of a shock that they sent that many people in that, but I think he should know, based on what he saw the child is capable of, just how valuable he is. And if anything, maybe it was more that he really started to think about what did they want this child for, and maybe that that he's that valuable that they sent so many people after him that there was more, maybe that kind of piqued his interest even more about what do they need him for. It can't be good, and maybe that kind of helped push him to the point of wanting to to rescue him.
From callbacks all the way to the Star Wars Christmas special to now, Jon Favreau does it again with another deep dive Easter egg of using the Canatone case to store the Beskar steel. For all the non-Super Star Wars geeks like us, it was first seen in Empire as they were evacuating the Cloud City. Kim, did you catch this space safe that looked oddly like an ice cream maker? And has the show met your expectations as far as these hidden gems?
Hallelujah for Favreau for finding a creative way to stick this in there. And this ties into what I was going to mention at the start of the show was, yeah, you're right. This beloved ice cream maker looking contraption, I think it's actually called a Chemtoro safe, possibly, first made its appearance in Empire Strikes Back. It was used when they were evacuating Cloud City. That's the healthy dose of foreshadowing right there. He's walking out with this Easter egg that was once used during an evacuation. And as soon as I saw that, the first thing that went off in my head was, oh, he's going to save Baby Yoda. That's the evacuation. Like, that's the tie-in. That's the connection here. And so I was really quite excited about it. And the way that he just kind of, slips these little things in under the radar, a lot of people won't notice, but, to people that have seen the movie a whole bunch or followed it or the comics or whatever, or like IG going to the special gatherings for what we were talking about before the show.
The Juggalos.
The Juggalos. The stormtroopers. So I just think it's brilliant the way that he was able to, kind of tie that in.
IG, the episode was entitled The Sin, but it should have been called Haters Gonna Hate. I mean, the Mandalorian gets grief from his people, and jealous stares at the bar, but do his fellow Mandalorians have a point about not getting in bed with the imps after their history with the Purge?
There is a point. There is a point to be made that, maybe that's not what you should be doing. But at the same time, Beskar isn't exactly flowing around everywhere. And if you're really going to keep the Mandalorians and their rituals and everything that they do going, Durasteel just doesn't cut it. You need the Beskar. So if you see a clear path to getting some with a minor interaction with a faction that is dead or dying, then you can help yourself and a bunch of Mandalorians in the process. Maybe you should. Maybe you should do that once in a while just to help as much as you can. Sometimes they say that, you can get a little bit in the wrong way, but help a lot of people by doing it. And there have been people that have done it all along. I mean, like Schindler's List is a huge example of this. He was working with the Nazis to save a bunch of Jews. Sometimes you got to deal with the devil a little bit to help out as many people as you can. And that's basically what he's doing. You got a little bit of a deal with the devil. And look at the amount of Beskar he walked out of there with. And maybe this will lead him to more of it. Maybe he'll find out that they've got a lot of it and he's got a way to getting some of it. I'm hoping so.
Speaking of evil stares, Ryan, I mean, was it almost shots fired as Djarin makes the mistake of asking the client, what are you going to do with him? And the reply was an eye-opening, well, it is easier to find this Beskar now than it is to find a Mandalorian.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of shots fired. And I think, again, just one more little nudge in the direction of him making the decision that he has to make. I mean, I love the casting of Werner Herzog for that role. I think I love his delivery was like threatening, even in that situation where we know kind of what kind of a badass, Mandalorian is. It was a great delivery and definitely a tense moment, and I think it's one of these interesting things where there's a lot of lore, clearly a lot of lore here as far as like both Mandalorians and their own culture, along with like the bounty hunters and the guild, and there's a lot that's not. They're doing a lot of like show not tell. So there's not a ton of kind of exposition and explaining how all this works, but we're really seeing it in real time. And I kind of, in some ways I like it. And in some ways it's a little frustrating because there are a lot of more questions than answers with some of these situations. Like, for example, like with this, what's the Great Purge? What happened? Is it related to, when did it happen? How did it happen? How were they decimated so badly? Why are they so upset with him, working with the Empire if he is bringing back something that is clearly important to them and their people. What are the rules with the bounty hunters? So that, it's a situation where, we see that he's breaking the rules by asking about what they're going to do, but where are the limits, So it's interesting because they are really doing a good job of not giving us exposition, which we're really used to. And maybe it's part of why the run times are so short, but it's kind of threading that needle as far as giving us just enough, but not giving us too much.
Well, and they're kind of doing that piece by piece with whatever happened the last time he saw his parents, right? They took him, they shoved him down into some sort of cellar and shut the doors, only to have a super battle droid open up those doors. Who do you think saves him? Because he's obviously in a tight spot, right? I mean, those doors swing open, super battle droid there. Who do you think comes to his rescue? Is it a Jedi? Is it the Mandalorians? Is it somebody else?
I'm not familiar entirely with the whole backstory of the Mandalorian. My gut tells me that it's probably has something to do with droids, and perhaps that's why he has a bad feeling about them. He doesn't like doing business with them. He doesn't want to associate with them in any way, shape, or form. So I'm really kind of hoping that that's not where his bridges are getting burned with that, or that something traumatic happened to him as a child. So I'm really hoping that perhaps it was a Mandalorian. Maybe he was raised up in this culture, and that's why he has such a strong allegiance and alliance to these people, who kind of showed him that this is the way.
Not my idea. I think it was the new Rockstar's IG, but what if the doors swing open, the super battle droid is ready to aim and fire, and then he gets cut down by actual Yoda? Would that maybe come full circle why he's so loyal to this kid?
Maybe, but I think that's going to push a little too far. I mean, if they put actual Yoda in this and during Clone Wars and everything, I think that's going to be too much. I think that him being rescued by Mandalorians and taken in as a foundling is one thing, or even just some random Jedi would be something. But knowledge of Yoda, having been around as long as he has, I think would have spread somewhat, because maybe he's not as outer rim as he is now. Maybe it's a core world and his parents were of Mandalorian descent, so to say. I think it's going to be a stretch to put any actual like original characters in this that deeply. Like a passing of the Millennium Falcon might be okay, like an X-Wing that might be going somewhere cool, but if we put actual Yoda in this, I think that's too much. I think that would kind of take me out of it for a moment. It'd be like, that's too thick a plot armor. So far they're doing a really good job where the plot armor isn't so thick that it takes me out of it. I mean, there have been some moments where it's like, ooh, that's convenient, but nothing that it's so crazy that I'm just like, oh, too much.
I would hope that they don't go the route of it being Boba Fett or Yoda that rescues him. I think it's just, the universe is too big for all of these coincidences that we've gotten in the movies, and we're all okay with it. But I think that would be a little bit, too far. And I like how this is kind of divorced from the larger universe. And I'd like it to stay that way. So I hope that it's just, random Mandalorian or maybe random Jedi, but even that would kind of bug me a little bit. But I think Favreau's too good. The Favreau Filoni combination are too good to make it, especially for this, to make it Boba Fett or Yoda. But we'll see.
Yeah, I like how it's kind of been its own thing throughout, where it's connected, but it's not. And I think that they should continue that way. And I think they should stay away from all those named characters and main storylines and kind of forge their own path. I was happy to find out that they're actually already filming season 2. Which overjoys me because they knew it was going to be a success, and it was. Kim, last week we talked about the video game leveling process as he's piecing together his Mandalorian armor. But did Mando get a cheat code now that he instantly has a full set? And were you disappointed, or is it just too sharp not to love?
He went from level 10 to level 10,000 overnight, didn't he? But that armor is so sharp, though. And obviously everyone else freaking hates him for it. Everyone's hating on him pretty hard. All of them, I'm sure, have their different reasonings, but I don't know. It kind of makes me feel like it makes him a target. He's got this painted target on him. Already the fobs are going off. Everyone's already looking for him anyway, and he's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb at this point. I don't know if it's a good thing that necessarily that he has it, but damn it if those little gadgets that he has aren't cool.
They really are. I was kind of disappointed in the whole thing. I would have liked to see him get it kind of piece by piece and build himself up. But now it seems like his gear is almost better than his ability, and it is making him a target, because even during the last showdown, they're like, well, we could just loot your body for parts once we're done killing you. Now they want him dead, not only because, he got the kid and absconded with it, but he has all this cool tech. They were even impressed with his guns, which, by the way, I don't know if I wrote it into the review, but those disintegrations are just amazing. The way that they're handling that with the gun, with it being shelled so he can't just rapid fire, but the fact that people just poof and gone. I love how they're doing it. It's something that we haven't really seen in the Star Wars universe before, other than Ben Kenobi, I guess, but that's completely unrelated. But I really think that stands out.
Maybe the disintegrated people went to the same place as Thanos' snap.
Quite possibly. I don't want to go, Mr. Stark.
Tie-in.
Ryan, his chief critic was a bounty hunter by the name of Paz Vizsla. Their disagreement came to blows, but it was quickly stopped. Would you have liked to see a little bit more of that battle? And as you said, we're getting this exposition, but we're getting it piece by piece. Is it leaving you craving more? Do you want to know more about the Mandalorians at the end of the day?
I want to know more about their culture and what happened to them and why they are the way they are. If you kind of watching Rebels, like there were Mandalorians and Rebels and they all took their masks off, but now it seems like taking their helmets off is like a sin, another, a major sin for them. So why is it? Is it related to the Purge? What's happened to them that they only go out one at a time? And why aren't they still being hunted down? And why is he okay? And then you wonder like, okay, so does that mean that Boba Fett was like a real traitor? Cause he was legit working with the Empire. So is he a traitor to his people, or not, or where's the line, so there are a lot of questions that I don't think the show will be able to answer fully. I do like that they're building it and they are giving us these questions. And again, that they're not just giving us in just exposition. The fight scene between them was perfect. I think it shows that there's tension, but at the end of the day, I think they respect each other. Neither of them, I think, was trying to kill the other person. I like that little effect they had with the knife, like that it kind of vibrating off of the steel or off of the Beskar, or I guess I don't know what he had hit at that point to get it to do that, but just that was a cool visual. But, that clearly they weren't going to try to kill each other. There's a lot there. And again, because these episodes seem so short and we're already almost halfway into the season, I don't know how much of this we're going to get, but it gives us a lot to look forward to in future seasons or maybe, other tie-in material. So I like the way they're building this and maybe gives it some more longevity because there's definitely a lot here in this world that we're going to learn and that really we want to learn.
Just a quick touch on that. The knife, it's a vibroblade. It's something that's been mentioned in a lot of different Star Wars things. They don't have to hit anything, that it does vibrate. It's got a motor and they vibrate to make them easier to cut things with. Kind of like that motorized knife we cut turkeys with. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. But yeah, that's a vibroblade. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
IG, after gaining the love of Apollo Creed and grabbing his next bounty, the hunter has a change of heart as he gets into his ship and powers up and decides to go back. Was there ever any doubt in your mind that this was going to happen from second one of this episode?
I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know if it was going to happen in this episode. I was hoping, because this really starts to shape what's going to happen the rest of this season, because it's going to be a lot of things I'm thinking having to do with the child, with the baby Yoda. And him leaving it there would have made him a true anti-hero. But him going back and getting it makes him a scoundrel. So now we've got our Han Solo type character right here. And quite honestly, I remember being a kid and playing Star Wars with my friends, and it was always a fight over who got to be Han, because like Luke was cool and Luke had a lightsaber, but Han was a scoundrel. So the scoundrel is kind of the way to go. And I can just picture it now, because that's the kind of character that now the Mandalorian has turned into. He's the Han character of the show so far. And I'm in for it. Like I'm sold. I'm there 100%. So I knew he was going to go back and get him. I just didn't know it was going to happen in this episode. There was no way that was the end of that storyline, and we were just going to go on to him going and getting more bounties. And that's okay. I mean, if it was just going to be, like Supernatural that does a new bad creature every week and everything, it gets old really fast. You need to have a contiguous storyline, something going forward. Now, they only have to have one storyline per season. It doesn't have to carry on for 6, 7, 8 seasons with him, with this kid. But we need to have something going on for more than just 1 or 2 episodes. So I'm glad that he went back, and I knew he was going to. Like I just felt it, like something just has always seemed very honorable in him, especially when he was sitting in front of the armor forger saying that he couldn't take the Mudhorn as his signet because an enemy helped him in battle. It shows how honorable he is, that he could have just taken it. Nobody else knew. There was no one else there. That kid doesn't speak, really. He could have gotten away with it, but why? Because he has honor, and that speaks volume.
So if it was you, would you be walking around with the Mudhorn on your armor?
Oh, yeah, big one on my chest, huge, just like this. No one would
I did
know.
it all. It was me winning. Kim, the raid on the Imperial compound showed a large arsenal of weapons and ingenuity. Out of the hundreds of ways we've learned to kill a stormtrooper, what were some of your favorites?
I'm a huge fan of the disintegrating thing, but I can't remember if specifically he actually shot one and it disintegrated or not.
I would say he had 3 iconic kills in that scene, like the rappel gun thing where he pulled the guy into a knife stab in the back, which was violent and kind of like, oh, that's not for kids. The burning the stormtrooper alive was another one. That's again like, oof, that's pretty rough. Like hearing that scream, like I wouldn't want to watch that with my 8-year-old. And then the what was the name of the cool like weapon in his forearm?
The whistling birds.
Whistling birds. That was awesome too. So he had some like just like 3 awesome kills all in that one scene. I was like, as you asked the question, I was thinking about, I was like, I don't know which one I liked the most out of those 3 because they're all pretty badass.
It was very James Bondish the way he was doing it. It's sneaking from spot to spot. And I believe there's a game called Assassin's Creed where that's basically all you're doing is going from spot to spot and sneakily trying to kill people. Well, they warned him, Kim, that the whistling birds were kind of a rarity. Use them sparingly because you don't know when you'll ever get them again. However, he seemed to use them all right away. Do you think we'll see them again in other opportune moments? Or are they just too insta-kill?
I think we need to see them again. I think there needs to be a demand to see more of them.
But they have to be situational, right? You can't just like, we need a way to kill this guy, whistling bird. Like the situation that he used them in this time was amazing. He's like, all right, hey, real valuable thing, sneaky. And they all went out and killed things all around him. That was cool.
I think it would have been better suited for maybe the Mudhorn.
He didn't have them.
I know, but it would have been better suited for an attack like that, is what I'm saying. That kind of artillery and that kind of power could have best been used for something a little bit more heavy duty. But, maybe he's a little trigger happy because he's got all these new gadgets and he wants to play with them all.
Well, IG, and that brings up a good point, using such a valuable weapon on stormtroopers. We've known throughout at least the original trilogy that the stormtroopers were kind of jokes. However, they've made them a lot more serious and a lot more fearsome. So are we upping the ability in the fear factor of the stormtroopers, or is Djarin just not there yet where he's just this super combat, I'll mow through 1,000 stormtroopers type hero yet?
Well, maybe these stormtroopers are still alive even though the Empire has fallen because they are that good. And I know that originally stormtroopers kind of evolved out of the clones, but as we've seen in The Force Awakens and the new trilogy, the stormtroopers that they have there are not clones. They were people that they got at young age and raised them to be stormtroopers. And so I think these stormtroopers are of that same ilk. And the fact that they're still alive after everything that's happened to the Empire says that maybe these are the best of the best. These would be, the Marines or the Special Forces. These would be the really tough stormtroopers. And so seeing that and seeing how easily the Mandalorian's able to take them out, it says that these stormtroopers may be good and they may have been some of the best still available, but Mandalorians are just that badass. And maybe, just maybe, you got to take a moment before you try and just hold your rifle up at one because you're going to take him out, or you think so.
Yeah, it seems like so far Jawas are the only match for the Mandalorian, because they took him out pretty easily. Fair enough.
20 Jawas versus one Mando, Jawas win.
Okay. Although, hey, a stormtrooper landed a shot, which I'm sure everybody took note of. that they actually made hit him. Unfortunately, it was Beskar and didn't do much damage. But no, I think they're doing a smart thing by making these stormtroopers not completely a joke, even though they, effectively still were pretty easily dispatched. I think for him to just go in guns blazing without needing to sneak around would not be good. And I think, at the end of the day, we're going to get more stormtroopers. We're going to get a lot more, I'm sure, because they'll still be remnants of the Empire. And so they need to be some kind of a formidable threat. So I think they did a decent job of making them not the joke that they had been in the original trilogy, but actually somewhat formidable in that he felt the need to sneak around. And one of them actually hit him. But yeah, though at the end of the day, I think they'll still be fairly easily dispatched by him.
Ryan, as the doctor begs for the child's life as the Mando storms the room, he takes him back and begins the rescue. If he hadn't done this, would it have changed your opinion on who he was if he didn't go back, even though it would have made the show fall more in line with what you thought it should have been?
I thought I wanted one show. I think everybody thought that we wanted one show, which is like, and for the first half of the first episode, first 3/4 of the first 95% of the first episode, I think we all thought that was what we wanted. Bounty of the week, watch him be a badass and maybe grow. And then they introduced Baby Yoda and the entire world has changed. And it's interesting because I think I read a headline, I got to read the article, but even Pedro Pascal's kind of coming to terms with Baby Yoda completely overshadowing his character. So, yeah, it's interesting because I think I wanted the show of the Bounty of the Week, and then we got Baby Yoda, and they've just done one of the most amazing jobs with character design and whatever mix of puppeteering and CGI. That character has come to life to the point that I just want to see this character, and it changed the show. And then it did become a show about, us following him, him changing becoming, a real protagonist and a real, a scoundrel or a good guy, or however you want to put it. Once that character was introduced and once they really started to pull on the heartstrings in the episodes 2 and 3, I think you had to have the show become about him rescuing and or protecting the child. We're getting a different show, and I'm getting the show I didn't realize I absolutely wanted. And my only hope is that they're able to balance the cuteness and the intrigue of Baby Yoda and finding his story with the kind of badassery and growth of the Mandalorian and learning more about the Mandalorian lore. I think that's going to be the challenge of the rest of the season, is trying to balance that cuteness factor and the fun that we have seeing Baby Yoda and him having to protect Baby Yoda without that kind of overshadowing the show and taking over what is something that I really do want to see, a character I want to see and a story I want to follow. So I think they're going to do it. They've really stuck the landing the first 3 episodes to me, so I'm confident. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think once they crack that egg, I don't need the Bounty of the Week anymore.
Balance is key in all things. IG, the lone hunter versus the whole guild of killers. Did that play more into the Western mindset that we were talking about last week? And did they mix it a little bit with John Wick?
It was absolutely just like John Wick. It was just like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It was just like Fistful of Dollars. It was just like all of those things combined, because there he is, and he's unnamed to most of these people other than Mando. So he's a Mandalorian, and that's all they know about him. They don't know his name. They don't know anything about him. They don't even know how old he is. And if he could blend in anywhere he wants just by taking off the armor and walking around, they'd have no idea. So this is absolutely a Western set in the Star Wars universe. That's all it is. And it's great. And you know what? The original stories were that, and we said that last week, that's all this is. It's samurai movies, Western movies, Star Wars movies. They're all the same, just set in different timelines. And it just works. I mean, it just the visuals, everything they do, everything that happens leads into those things. I mean, him getting his new armor is just like John Wick going to those guys, getting a new suit that's tactical and some new guns. Same thing. And I love it. It all just blends in together. And you know what? Those movies did well. The original old Clint Eastwood movies did well, and they've been classics ever since. And people love the new John Wick movies. And there's a reason. It's because it's beautiful to look at. The choreography of the fights is just amazing and fun to watch. And it really gives you somebody who is kind of an anti-hero to just get behind and enjoy this guy and his honor and fighting for what he believes in. I love it. I love every second of it.
Well, I don't know about you, IG, but if my opponent has a gun that'll disintegrate you, I think I just let him go.
Yeah, he can leave.
You know,
now. I'm going to go back in the bar, have a drink.
You can't undisintegrate me. You know, once I'm gone, I'm gone. So maybe just go ahead with the kid. It's fine. After I see him blow up 2 or 3 people, I never understood that in these movies where there's these large scale fights and the henchmen come and wave and waves and waves. By the time we get to the last henchman, I'm going to be standing there like drinking a Coke, and I'm going to be like, yeah, go ahead. It's good. I thought I wanted to fight you, but I just seen you kill literally 100 people. It reminds me of Kill Bill when she's in there fighting the crazy 88. Okay. She's cutting everybody's arms and legs off. You know, go on with your bad self. I'll go outside and stand by your car and make sure nobody scratches it up. Kim, with disintegrations aplenty, but still very much surrounded with enemies, and they're closing in at all sides, the Mandalore show up in force to save the day. Were you surprised, or did you expect it?
I got goosebumps during that scene. I thought it was amazing, and I hope that we get to see more camaraderie like that. And I think it was just amazing to see that even though he was technically not doing what he was supposed to, that the oath of their camaraderie is greater than anything else. Nothing mattered. It didn't matter that, you know, he broke an agreement with somebody else. It didn't matter that he went back and he tried to break an ethics thing by taking the bounty that he had delivered. It didn't matter. And that they all showed up and they had his back no matter what. And I just thought that was such a great little scene. And the way that it all played out, the theatrics of it, the cinematography, everything about that whole scene was just brilliant. And it kind of made me connect a little bit more on a different level. Like, you know, before I was like, all right, I'm trying to understand, trying to feel like some sort of I want to be connected to this particular show. And I'm trying to find different ways that I can tie it into what I already know of it. And then this happens and I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And I just really enjoyed that entire bit.
How about you, IG? Were you screaming, "This is the way" with your Mandalorian foam finger #1?
It was just amazing, and I didn't expect it at all. Like, the way that they were treating him in there, I thought that, okay, we'll let you be here because, yeah, you're a Mandalorian. You've never taken your helmet off. You've never let somebody else take your helmet off. All right, fine, you can be cool. But we're going to stay in this nice little basement and hang out here playing cards and drinking beer because you're a punk and you're the one that gets to go out right now. We don't get to go out because you get to go out. And then all of a sudden they're all with their jetpacks and everything. And, you know, current Mando, no jetpack. These guys all have jetpacks. So I'm wondering if there's like a clan level thing that like, all right, you do enough things, you get a jetpack, or does he have to go get another like ice cream bucket full of Beskar so that he can get a jetpack? Like what is the requirement to get a jetpack? Because man, I'm in it for the jetpack. Like, we only saw it once before in any of the live action Star Wars stuff, and it was basically fly over to the skiff and then get the jetpack hit and fly into the side of the barge and into the Sarlacc. So our previous exposure to jetpack was pretty lame compared to this. So them flying around doing their things and seeing like a heavy Mando come down with the Jesse Ventura railgun kind of thing, man, I was all about it. And I loved every second of it, but I did not see it coming. I thought he was going to have to find a way out of it on his own.
It was very cinematic, and I didn't expect it either. And what I loved was I was imagining them all standing there like, he got himself into some trouble. And there's got to be that one naysayer that didn't want to go. He's like, well, but he's got that brand new armor, so he should be fine. And the debate's probably going on whether they should go and help or not. And ultimately they did the right thing. And he may have a full set of armor, but he doesn't have a jetpack, which I thought was great. Ryan, Apollo Creed tries to stop the Djarin from escaping with the baby only to get shot for his effort. Was losing faith with the Bounty Hunter Guild worth gaining the trust of the Mandalorian people?
I don't know that it was a matter of gaining their trust. They're protecting their own, and clearly it's important to them that they protect their own. And again, I'd like to know more about why. Why did they come after him? I don't feel like his actions made them think better of him. But again, so much as that, they're protecting their own. I think, look, at the end of the day, he made things a lot harder for them because they had to come out and rescue him, which means they're going to have to find another place. Maybe some, who knows if any of them died. So it's going to create a lot of disarray. So in a lot of ways, they would have been way better off if he just had taken his next bounty and disappeared. But I do think that, even just that little interaction with I'm forgetting the heavy artillery guy, but the interaction with him, and it seems like they were all in and that they were happy to save him, and maybe that does build some rapport with them. And I'm sure this isn't the last time we're going to see them. I think for him, it does a lot more harm than good, but I think maybe it makes him a better person, and that he realizes that there's more to life, and maybe he has a greater purpose, in helping people or righting wrongs than he does just kind of collecting bounties. And so I think that long term, if besides like the remnants of the Empire probably being on his back and chasing him down, the actions make him a better person, and that growth is something that the show is going to be about, and what we're going to really learn. We'll learn that and witness that growth, and that's kind of where the show's headed.
Kim, your final thoughts and your rating for the episode?
I give this episode a 10. I absolutely loved it, and I think it's been my favorite so far. I know there's only been a few, but I feel like it was brilliantly done, and it gives me a lot of excitement for the direction that the entire show is going to be heading into over the next several episodes. So I'm all in. I'm bought in. I can't get out. I'm like, I'm cuffed to my TV. I have to see what's going to happen next. So for me, it's spot on. So enthusiastic about this. I absolutely just loved it.
I have a hard time grading only because I've loved the first 3 episodes equally, and I think that they built on each other. So it's almost really hard in some ways it's hard for me to grade them individually, because I really feel like each one has kind of built into the next one so brilliantly that I love it. I mean, I don't know that I would say 10, but probably a 9.5. But I would say that this show's the most excited I've been about a show since season 4 of Game of Thrones, which coincidentally starred Pedro Pascal. This episode, the one thing it did, it really tugs on the heartstrings, as I said a couple times. And I love what they did with that little freaking handle in a spaceship. And they could put you on the verge of tears, like that opening scene of Baby Yoda trying to grab it and him saying no. And then that middle scene of him about to take off. And that was the thing that pushed him over the edge, seeing that handle. And then at the very end, him just handing the handle, or taking it off and giving him the piece of the handle. It's like, it would make grown men cry. I mean, that's how, that this episode just had all the feels. Just every moment it was really tugging at you, and I felt like one of the more emotional episodes of anything I've seen in a really long time. Even though it was only 30, a little more than 30 minutes or less than 40 minutes. They pack so much in. I love that they're feeding us more of the lore. I love the action set pieces, both when he was recovering the child and also at the end with all the bounty hunters. Like you guys, I didn't see the Mandalorian saving the day coming, even though it's so freaking obvious. So I was like, how did I not see that coming? But they did an amazing job of setting it up, and then you completely forget about them, and then they come in to save the day in a scene that was beautifully shot and very cinematic. It almost felt like a live action, in a good way, a live action version of like Rebels or the Clone Wars. It really felt Star Warsy and really great. And again, they continue to get the Baby Yoda just again. It feels like a real character. It feels like a real thing that's there. So yeah, I love this episode. 9.5. And again, I'm loving the show so far. Best thing in a really, really long time.
So what I love about The Mandalorian is how it feels in comparison to the rest of the Star Wars universe, because it feels like it's separate, but yet it belongs. And all the callbacks and all the things that make it familiar are great, but they aren't like thrown at you in such a way that you have to be the Star Wars fan to enjoy it. Now, of course, I am a Star Wars fan, just as the rest of us are here on Cinik Radio. But my wife, who is not a Star Wars fan, enjoys it as well. And I love that. And they did more of that in this episode. And they're going to continue doing that. I just see it coming. And they can't do anything wrong with that type of mentality. They're making a Western that feels familiar to Star Wars people. And it's going to be exciting to bring in a whole new generation of Star Wars fans with this. It's shot beautifully. It looks like they're not cutting any expense on special effects because they're all done extremely well. The acting, like we spoke previously about the Mandalorian not showing his face so you can't read it. But you know what? The acting in this episode was so good. The body was so good that Pedro Pascal is necessary in that costume because you could read just from his body language because he didn't speak much in the entire episode. But it was still just so apparent how involved in this he was. I loved the episode, as with all episodes of The Mandalorian so far. A great episode, 9.5 for me as well.
I'm about the same IG. I'm at about a 9, but only because I think the next few episodes are just going to ramp up. Hands down, the show continues to build. The story continues to gain momentum. It's interesting. His weapons and armor are outstanding. Not only did our hero show he's a man of honor for not taking credit for the Mudhorn kill, but he also showed that he's a man of principle by going back and saving the baby Yoda, which was no small feat. The consequences of his actions in this episode felt real, and I was riveted not only by the rescue, but the escape off the planet. This show is delivering in every single way, and it's the way Star Wars is supposed to be. It's just meant to be this way. This is what was promised to us, and we're getting it. But lastly, before we go, by the time most of you hear this, it'll be Thanksgiving in the United States, and I want to take this time to give thanks for you, the listener, for your continued support of the Cinik Radio podcast. Your likes and your listens mean everything to us here at the show. On this holiday of time spent with friends and family, hold them close, eat, drink, and be merry, and be thankful not only for your loved ones and the amazing food, but also that we have 5 episodes of The Mandalorian left to enjoy. This is the way.
And that's it. You made it to the end of another episode of the Cinik Radio podcast. I'm Igrihe, here with Cinik, who you can find at CINIKRADIO.com. Also, we had Ryan, who you can find at thejimwits.com, and Kim, who you can find at KMCArtworks.com. Great artists. Go check out some really cool stuff. We'll be back next week with some new stuff for you, probably some news as well. Send your crazy news stories, any comments, questions, and concerns to us at CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Look for us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. Find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. And find us on Instagram at CINIKRADIO. You can also head over to tpublic.com, search for Cinik, CINIK, and get your own Cinik Radio podcast gear. T-shirts, mugs, cups, stickers, all the cool Cinik Radio podcast stuff you could possibly want. It'd help the show, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for all the love and support. Keep listening, sharing it with your friends, like, listen, and subscribe. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CINIKRADIO.com. Available for download on iTunes.
I have spoken.